pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our first order of business after that was a meeting with renters for water shutoffs. Do we have anybody here?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
They're not, you didn't get any word from anybody? Okay. If somebody shows up, we will. Amendments to the agenda.
I have no amendments tonight.
Anyone else? Moving right along. Approval of minutes of October 4th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 4th as written.
Second?
Second.
Couple of seconds there. Any additions, deletions, corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5 minutes for public comment. Ms. Billowitz?
You want my copy?
I'd like to say, dear Fairhaven, select board members, the current situation with the properties located at 5 Union Street, 7 Union Street, and 1618 River Street is long-standing and has most recently come to light with the comments of Mr. Gunter stating we owe back taxes and with the proposed cleanup of the properties. Whereas there are many new members of the board, my son and I, Jonathan and I, thought it would be appropriate to pass along information which might give some background and hopefully lead to a resolution which would be beneficial to both the town and to ourselves. As you will please note from the enclosed sworn and subscribed testimony of former town manager Herb Durfee, we did in fact come to the town and hand-delivered an attorney's check in the amount of $15,000 to pay our back taxes, interest and penalties. There was communication with Attorney Bill Bloomer, the attorney for the town, that the select board could accept this check without going through the public process. This option never came to fruition since Mr. Durfee refused to take our check. We came in good faith to pay our taxes, to make the town whole, and to keep the properties on the tax roll. It was and is our intent to maintain our homes and be on the tax roll. You will also please note from the enclosed pages from the deposition, Mr. Durfee clearly states that the town never made a formal bid for the properties. This is also substantiated by the auctioneer's notes which indicate no bid was made. Unfortunately, this matter remains in court. And as it stands now, both parties, the town and ourselves, are at a disadvantage. There is no income for the town, it is not on the tax rolls, and there's the issue of cleanup. We understand this. Also, we, my son and I, are capable of paying taxes and keeping the properties on the tax rolls and would like to fix the properties up. To prevent any irreparable harm to our personal belongings, we respectfully request the town not disturb the properties nor our possessions in hopes that the board will consider the enclosed documents which I'm about to give you, demonstrating that we did in fact present a check to Mr. Durfee and he refused the check. And it was to pay our taxes, keep the properties on the tax roll, and it was refused. We showed good faith then, and we are still willing to do so. understand that this is in litigation, and I understand wholeheartedly that there cannot be any comment from the board during this public process here. However, we would respectfully hope, that you would take this into consideration, because as it stands now, it's a no-win situation for anyone. Our good faith was demonstrated then, and unfortunately, we came to the board, to Mr. Durfee, with the check, and it was refused. And that's in his deposition. So we did make an attempt to do so, and our good faith still stands.
There's plenty of comment to be made at the proper time, and we will. I will say one thing, that you have a knack for selective history, and there's more to the story than you're saying, and that's all I'll say at this time.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, and I
Thank you.
hope that you do consider our good faith as demonstrated in the deposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Department head reports.
So it gets me.
You win.
I thought Aaron was coming back. I hope he does. I don't have anything from DPW. Well, I shouldn't say that. So, sewer flushing has begun this week. I know paving 4th Street, last I heard it was gonna be finished today.
It is.
It is done. Good.
Was it done? There was,
Beautiful.
did they finish the transition part?
It looked like it was finished.
Okay,
when
I was there later, but not late, so
Yeah.
I was there middle of the afternoon.
I think I was there at 4:30.
Oh, okay,
They also did
Looked totally
furnace.
done.
okay, cool.
So, they said they were gonna get 4th Street done. I just haven't been out to look. Furnace Street was complete. South Main, I believe, was finished or was supposed to be finished.
They got like just a patch there.
Yes.
That's all they were looking for, cause there
Well,
was
it's a
some
little-
soft.
Yeah, well, it needs to be beveled off or something, or you take a look at it.
There's issues there that's
Oh, I don't doubt that.
something going on there. I guess the compaction wasn't right when that was originally
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was a
It just
horrible
keeps-
mess.
Just keeps rolling up.
Yeah.
And there's water issues there that Aaron was gonna deal with.
I think that they're right on ledge there, and anything they put there, like you say, just pushes out every time there's enough weight. But there must be a way to mitigate that a little bit. I don't-
Hopefully he gets that water issue squared
Yeah.
away on the opposite side, which we think is migrating into the road bed there.
Yeah.
And, we suspect that's what's going on.
Scott Chill is still on the docket, though not till next week. So we are gonna put a thick shim on that to even that road out, cause it's a little beat up. For the police, the report was in the box, just to hit the highlights. A lot of fingerprints again, 30 sets. 5 arrests for motor vehicle, 68 traffic violations were issued, 11 warnings, and then they had 4 crashes. 68 actual violations, that's a lot for us. Yeah, that
Did
is
you say 68?
68, yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Traffic.
He did come. We thought you were gonna beat a hasty retreat.
Thank you.
You want me to do town manager and come back to Aaron?
Sure.
Yeah.
You're on a roll.
Yeah, from the manager's office, the Economic Development Committee's kind of Made in Fairhaven campaign will get underway early next month. If you've seen at the table, there was a little sticker that said Made in Fairhaven sticker. We're gonna hand those out to our producers in town to kind of drum up just a little bit of interest in what we're doing here in town. Water shutoff started today. We started with over 100, I think it was 120 pink slips. As the day went on, we're down to 20 people to be shut off, 20 to 30. Don't quote me on that. But it's much further down than it started.
That seems high, I mean.
It was a lot of pink slips.
That's sign of the times, I'm afraid.
VHB, they're kind of like Du Bois and King. They're contractors and engineers. They're the ones working on the Sheldon Solar Project. They're helping us out with the wetland delineation at the airport, on the airport. And they say, they didn't give me a number, how many acres, but they said they've made headway on the land, believing that they've now changed it from wetland to not wetland with the state. Yeah, so it's a starting point. Solar project, if you saw that at the transfer station from where you guys were standing, that project is going to be done before January 1st. So starting January 1st, we'll start pulling in that $11,000 in revenue for the lease of the land.
7,000, did you say?
11,000
11.
Is that 11,000 per month or per year?
per year.
Per year?
We tried to negotiate more, but
They don't pay a lot. I mean, that 35 acres that they wanted at the transfer station, or at the airport one time, they wanted to give us $1,500 a month, I think was the number. It's just not a lot of money.
But 11,000.
It's revenue.
Yeah,
I mean,
11,000 is 11,000 more.
Yep.
And
Yep.
at a landfill,
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a perfect place for it.
yeah, it's a good investment.
my list of tax sale properties has gone down. So I started with 5. 3 people have paid their bills completely. So we're down to 2. That's not to say that those are the only people that owe taxes. Those are just the people that I started on. We'll start working on other properties as well. EV charging station is moving forward. That gentleman said that project will be done this year. Aaron and I are meeting with them on Friday at 8:30 on site to talk
You're gonna
construction.
put it in the same place?
Same spot.
There's no hope of incorporating any of that into the new parking lot?
I'll ask, but the design is pretty far along. But I'll ask while I'm there.
Well, then maybe try to work it into the design of the,
How's that gonna affect the sidewalk project? Is that gonna be in a location where it doesn't have to be moved and the sidewalk project comes in, or?
I told them that was gonna be bumped out, and they did not seem concerned with it. They asked, will that impact us to do the build? And I told them not now. But I said, that's all gonna be grass area here in a couple years, and it didn't seem to change their mind at all. I think, Mr. Greeno, what it is that their grant funding is starting to disappear, so they wanna get a project in. I think they're gonna deal with it when the time comes. That's my interpretation of it. And the Fairhaven VT.gov site is under construction. We got the green light from the federal government that our site is registered. So we're moving forward with that. On to a few of the projects. Lights in the Park. D&K, they've done the final draft for those projects, and the right-of-way paperwork has gone to the state, so we're coming up to a point where we'll start to see bid documents go out, and that construction will be in early spring. There will be a liquidated damages clause, meaning, we want it done on this day, or you start paying us money back, like we did with the Mechanic Street sidewalk. There will be an interim completion date for the lighting itself in the park. We want that done first, so we're going to have that done. The interim completion date will force them to do that first. Salt shed, that was scrapped. Town hall renovation. So I finally got some answers from these folks. They kept telling me parts were back ordered. We're waiting on 2 circuit breakers. It's what's holding us up is 2 circuit breakers. The little. I looked around myself to try to find some, and nobody has them.
None in the Northeast.
Unbelievable.
I bet you not, I mean,
Yeah, so that's what's holding us up. Yeah, they did say in November something was the delivery date for those, but as Aaron can attest, that date may very well change with the way things are. Wastewater you went and seen. Playground, we did get those ADA ramps ordered, but those won't be in until the beginning of next year. Sidewalk, no movement on the sidewalk. ARPA funds, the Fed said they're just shorthanded, so ARPA funds will be arriving late. Adams Street Bridge, we did not get we were ranked, so I talked to the federal government. We did not get the grant, but we were ranked recommended, which, that's great, but we still didn't get any money. So that is coming out again this year, same criteria, so I'm gonna try again. It shouldn't be much of a lift to rewrite that grant to improve. They gave me some tips on how to improve
This is the Adams Street Bridge.
the Adams Street Bridge. And then last thing, we had a revolving loan fund. I don't know if the board remembers, but USDA gave us some money to loan out to our businesses. Our first loan was given to Dave Nelson. He had 5 years to pay that back. Instead, he just paid it back in one check last week. So the town has more than $30,000 now to loan out to our local businesses if they want to do some kind of upgrades or expansions. I did get a letter from the Itty Bitty Committee saying they would like the park fence painted.
Really? I hadn't heard that before.
I can't leave that out. That's what I have today.
Any questions for TM? Aaron?
Thank you all for coming down to look at the wastewater plant. That definitely improves the relationship with the operators and morale down there to see you guys interested in all their hard work that they put into that. As you can see through the walkthrough, there's a lot of stuff that goes on down there. So it's an awesome place to take pride in, to see that our money and funds have been well used and utilized to further the town. So thank you for that. So we'll stay with wastewater. As you saw with the sample on the shelf, we are starting the sewer main flushing for the year, our annual flushing. Started on the south side today because of all the paving and everything going on in this north end, so we weren't conflicting traffic and all that stuff. Tomorrow, A1 will be back, and then again Thursday, and we'll see how far we get. If we need more time, we have some money left, we can do them again, or we save that money to try and do some rehab work versus rehab work on the manholes instead of having to have them come flush lines because it's plugged up with stuff. How about we stop the stuff from getting in the lines to begin with? So it's been fairly effective. We try and keep some of that money and do more preventive measures instead of reactionary measures. Otherwise, with wastewater, as Joe had said, circuit breakers in that garage place, that's what we're waiting on. Effectively is the internals on the electrical panels there, so they can switch over to the new transformer and remove all the old gear that feeds that place with power. So that's one of the bigger weights for there. Highway end of it, finally, Furnace Street and 4th Street are completed on the paving portion. There's still some items we need to finish up ourselves. A couple manholes, just storm drain or two that still needs some work up there, as well as 4th Street. As soon as it was completed, I sent an email to the state to say, hey, why don't we come back and paint it now that it's done instead of when it wasn't done. Normally that probably would have been a no-go, wasn't going to happen. With the Route 4A paving, the state will have a line striper in town, so as long as I make sure I get a response from them or keep bothering them until I get a response, when they're paid, after they pave that through, they're gonna stripe that. They should have no issues of going down striping that. South Main Street, we patched over that broken spot today. Sounds like they had an issue at the plant and didn't have enough material to do the other lane, but that other lane is gonna get the same coat. It'll only help down there. When we dug down there, it was only 3 inches, and it should be at least 4 or 5. So whether when the state pavement came through, took a little more than it was supposed to, or we didn't get enough back, or somehow that should help hold that back together even better yet, and it won't be a difference of slopes across the road there either. So that's some of the bigger stuff. Winter sand is all in. Thank you, Mr. Brino. We went with 2 of the guys to a salt reduction effort class down at Lake George. And you can attest there's a lot of technology and a lot of new stuff out there that's improving not only the road conditions for wintertime operations, but the ability for us to use less salt and be less cost to us. But the bigger picture for us is not impacting the environment nearly as bad as we have in years past. So. I've been up on Scotch Hill doing some potholes down there. I think they put another 4 tons of hot mix down by hand. And some of the potholes up there, We do have them coming, the paver is gonna be in hopefully next week. We're hoping that we can get them in this Friday. We don't think so. They didn't allude to that, but they're supposed to be in the area for the next few days and hoping they just skip up there, but I don't know if they will. They ran into an issue on 4th Street with the first paver they had here. It had a broken part in it, so otherwise they would have been all done before you today with probably all of it, but, so they're waiting for that to come back. Started on the winter maintenance for the trucks, or mechanical maintenance for them, getting their oil changes done, getting them all checked up, ready to go. All of the equipment minus 2 pieces has had its oil undercoating going into the winter. Yeah. Water department is working shutoffs this week. They've made great progress on getting the chemical tanks tore out. There's 2 of them are all gone. The last one to go is gonna be a caustic soda tank. That's the corrosive, bad one. So that one's gonna take a little bit more time and thought for us to see how far we can possibly go safely without possibly needing an outside company to do any cleanup of that stuff. So that's in the works. The delivery date still looks like end of November for those new tanks. Yeah. That's all I have for.
Good. Your team did a nice job with the tour and everything. Gorgeous down there. Wish there was a way that our taxpayers could be able to see what their dollars went to, because pretty nice.
Well, I
Shouldn't
think,
be for years.
I think that as soon as the website is up,
We should
that a
get some
visual,
pictures. Yeah,
visual tour for that is in
that would be nice.
in order. People should see that. I mean, they spent some money there,
Just really good
and
money.
it was well spent,
Mhm.
and well spent. I mean, just the cleanliness of the place is, you know, that's an attaboy that people need to see. Both the water plant and the sewer plant are both nice and clean now. It makes 100% difference than your work environment when the thing is clean. Really does.
And with the operators we have down there, same as with Pete, I think you're continuing to see that level of cleanliness and pride in that facility, and we'll live it quite a few years out.
I mean, it's easy to be clean when you've got the storage where you should have storage and that kind of like that. I know Pete was struggling with other problems, and he did a great job too, but this is nice.
And don't let your DPW crew get discouraged. We know that we have another area that needs to be tackled.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
That's what I
Any
said
questions?
last week, inspire.
Ins-
Inspire.
Anything else for Aaron?
I just want to add that the salt seminar that I attended was very interesting. I've had the opportunity for my job many years ago to attend them every year, but boy, things have really changed, let me tell you, from what they used to be. And they're pushing very limited uses of salt now for the environment. It's coming, so we're just gonna have to buckle up and do our part. There's a lot of equipment out there that wasn't available many years ago. They got live edge blades now, which contour to the road, which take 99.9% of the stuff off the road, so if the salt brine will react quickly. They can't stress enough opening up the roads for the brush control and mowing. That's very, very important to get the sunlight in the best we can. Just things like that. It's not just salt use in the winter. It's the summertime saves you money in the winter with salt if you do it right. So it's a very, very interesting.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay. All right, so we move on then. Old business to traffic ordinance.
So I made the adjustments that the board had requested last time. Article 17 is the school zone on 4th Street.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Will you, there should actually be some more stripe painting and things. right, for the school zone area? Should we, on
Crosswalks,
the
you mean?
crosswalk or even just any kind of, is there any kind of road signage or road painting that we need to do to say school zone on that?
I know there's some signage we have to buy, but in terms of paint,
I'm just thinking that something on the ground.
I have to look at the guide from
Yeah.
the federal.
That would be
DOT,
interesting.
say if you designate a school zone, if it has to have paint on the ground too, versus just signage itself.
The reason I've been in DC a couple of weekends and they have money down there and everything's painted. It's quite impressive. But I mean, I don't know if there needs to be anything. It would be nice to know if we should put something. It might be worthwhile coming up with something. But anyways, sorry.
So, school zone was added, and then the miles per hour that we talked about at the last meeting that were just omitted in error, those were added back in. So this guy is ready to go.
So you're looking for a motion?
I need a motion and some signatures today.
Right, I'll make a motion that we accept the traffic ordinance with the changes of the language for the 4th Street school zone and the speeds on Bigelow Hill and Scotch Hill.
Second. Thank you. Any additions or any comments? There's a comment period and a public hearing we have to have.
Yep, I've drafted the notice already. I need to get it to the newspaper, and then it'll be posted around town in 3 or 5 places. I forget the numbers, but yeah, it'll be posted and ready to go.
Any other comments, questions?
I just noticed that there is a 25-mile-an-hour sign on Pine Street that looks like a new sign that went up because we didn't have it. Wasn't posted, but now it is. I see, so that's good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Seconded.
Just got one thing to add on that. There was one of the bus drivers, I don't know his name, but he came up to me at Abishan Hardware one day and he spoke of the issues up at the school during let-out time. Like the 10 minutes, it's just real busy. He suggested maybe, and this is something that I'm sure we'd have to ask the school to do if they can do it, but he suggested holding the students that drive back 5 or 6 minutes until the buses cleared the area. He thought that would make a tremendous effort with the traffic there for just that few minutes. So, and it's something that maybe we could discuss down the road with the school and bring it to their attention, or maybe he said he was gonna write a letter. Maybe the letter should go to the school board.
Yeah, and
So we don't control the school when the school lets out.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying I thought it was a great idea.
I wonder if that includes the parents picking up, though.
I don't know. I don't know what he,
I mean, it might be the other way around, hold the buses for 5 minutes, too, you know.
well,
One way or the other, chicken or egg, but I mean,
Right.
it's not a bad idea one way, however.
I thought it was a great idea and I wanted to mention it.
Mhm.
He said he was gonna produce a letter, but I haven't seen it yet, so.
Easement for Green Mountain Power.
Yeah, so Green Mountain Power agreed to put an abandonment clause into the easement.
Thank you, Rod.
So and it's only 3 sentences, well, 1 sentence, I guess, technically. It says, in the event that the grantee abandons its use of the easement, the grantee's rights granted herein shall cease and terminate, whereupon all rights hereunder shall revert back to grantor, its successors, or assigns.
Perfect.
So you're looking for a motion?
For this one, so it needs to be signed in front of a notary. So if the board would approve it and give me authority to sign, I can sign it in front of a notary and make it official instead of having Bob sign and then beg approval.
I make a motion, we approve it.
With that covenant, with you being the designee. Right, okay. Second? Second? Chad, second. Chad seconded. Getting a lot in today. Everybody understand what we're doing?
Mhm.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
Did they, the authorization to have
And
him sign it?
giving Joe the
I
authorization to
didn't
sign
hear
it.
that.
Oh, yeah, he said that beforehand. Yep.
See,
did.
see what?
I know you
in the-
said
in
it,
the-
but I
in the
didn't hear
motion-
that in the
see,
motion.
We used
Okay.
it, we used a so moved,
Motion to
so moved, so we wouldn't have to say it again. But yes,
You think you think I can hear nodding too?
I don't know why you can't. There's rattles and there's stones in most of our brains anyways, you shouldn't be able to hear that. Bylaw grant approval.
Yeah, so the Ed Bove over at Rutland Regional has written a grant for the town to get their zoning updated. And if I remember correctly, this is kind of this money will go to actually do the legwork of typing and producing a document that's clean and very professional.
All the
So,
maps and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
So today what I need is a motion from the board to approve this and have the chair sign it, if the board wishes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the grant application to help get a clean copy of the zoning laws and have the town manager given the authority to sign it. Bob,
signs it.
stand corrected, have Bob have the authority to sign it.
You're out of order.
I should have said what he said.
Second. Thank you.
Sorry, does the grant pay for everything, or just a?
I think it's 100%.
It pays for everything. It essentially pays, Ed Bove is not the chairman of the Rutland Regional anymore, or the director anymore. It essentially pays for him to do all the work. You know, we're at the point now where we've got all the strike throughs, we've got it on a Word doc. So everything that we've put into it is in a Word doc now. He'll go through, edit all that, retype it, reset it. They'll do the maps that have to be on the appendixes. They'll do the table of contents, and it'll be a document when we get it back. And I think, does it say, I think it's $10,000, isn't that what the? That's what he
I
meant.
don't recall.
Yeah.
It wasn't a ton of
That's really why I
money.
asked, because I didn't hear a number.
Yeah, I believe it's $10,000. There's no match for us on this end of it.
And it wasn't a ton of money.
Any other questions?
What's that actually do for us?
Well, I can show you what we have now. This is what we have now. And what it will do is we'll get a clean copy. We'll get several clean copies, but we'll get all of the, you know, it'll go from the front page to the back page. Grammar, setting it up all, so everything's complete. One of the things we've been doing since I've been on the planning commission is we've been all working on with different copies. No copy was the same of any of the board members, which is just hard to believe. But to get a clean copy, it all had to be on a single format. It's now all on a Word document. It's and all of what we've done, I'll explain in a minute more about what's going on. But so what he'll do is go through this. He'll put in appropriate language for where we have to comply with state laws. He'll do that. He's also made some suggestions that I'll document in a minute, but it doesn't have anything to do with the grant. But it'll be a working document that we can trust. Right now, there's several versions of that in it. Needless to say, could only hurt us sometime. So that's what this will do. And you know, when you think about it, 10 grand isn't a whole bunch of money. He's going to spend some time on it, and he's going to spend a lot of time on it. So that's what we're doing for this grant. And we got to vote All those in favor?
I,
Those opposed? Okay. Yours. So to continue, the next thing on the list is the planning commission presentation. We're at the point now where we're going to get a final copy, but there are still some suggestions, mainly from Ed Bove, that, and most of them make perfect sense to me. A lot of what has changed is grammar, or what if you wanted to look through this with all the strike-throughs and things like that, most of it is either grammar or change in state laws, or one of the things that the commission has been doing for the last year and a half, or at least year, is going back to 2011, and in some cases a little bit farther back, and looking at motions that were made and legally made in the commission meetings and never incorporated in the language. So we've been working on a document that is really flawed. So a lot of what we've done in the last year and a half is go through and say, okay, was this a real motion? What literally, Cindy Pritchard has had a stack of minutes and motions and where it correlated in the paper. We plowing through that. We got to that. We're through that. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of new language for state law that we have to do to incorporate. I think what we're going to do with that is we're going to just put the state law in. So there's no question. So at one point we thought we were going to paraphrase it, which I was adamant that was a bad idea. You know, our way of thinking may not be what the law says. So I think now it's going to say the law. It'll say the law, or a reference to the law.
Bob, when you said the motions that were made, were you talking in terms of things like if the planning board in the past had said, for example, no apartments on the first floor in the downtown, did the zoning law actually say that? Or if they said a sign can't be any bigger than this,
all of that.
and it's that kind of stuff.
That kind of stuff.
It's that kind of stuff you were talking. Okay, I just want to make sure it was clear.
That one never showed up.
Never showed up as a motion.
The one about apartments.
Or apartments. I was using it as a.
And it's a good example because but there's a couple there's some that are far more controversial suggestions, and what the planning commission wants from you is consideration now. So before we give you a final draft, that we have your input. So one of the things is the dimensional requirements. Ed says that we are very stringent in our dimensional requirements for everything compared to other towns. For instance, a commercial lot minimum size has to be 20,000 feet in Fairhaven. A commercial lot. In most towns, it's 6,500 feet. And what we're doing is we're limiting ourselves. If people are looking to put some sort of commercial space in, and they've got to have 20,000 feet, almost all the property that would be commercial is not available to them. And the other end of that is maximum building coverage. Because right now we max out at 30%. Most towns for commercial spaces allow 80%. And if you look at downtown, it's 100%. Go ahead.
When the question hits, and tell me. I can remember in our last meeting, I think it was Jay who mentioned something about the cars at a daycare on
Yeah.
Mechanic Street, parking in the road and causing, and I'm saying, well, aren't there some, if a commercial business, even a daycare, were to go in, aren't there some zoning requirements that says you have to have X amount of parking?
And
I didn't know if that's the things that
that's
were.
coming.
Oh, okay. No, only, and also because I see that that's what other towns that are struggling with their zoning
Yes.
updates. It's
And-
things like parking.
But
that,
these,
okay.
so that's coming. I'll bring that's far more controversial on the board as far as the parking things and the suggestions that Ed
Okay.
came up with. But so the whole idea of setbacks in residential, commercial, everything, we're very stringent, and the bottom line is it inhibits the ability of businesses to come here. So his suggestion is to lower a lot of those like the minimum lot width, all of that, front, the maximum building coverage is a biggie. I mean, you really, you struggle with if you can only put 30% of your retail space can only be it can only be building. The rest has to be whatever, green space, parking.
Is there discussion about permeable as opposed to impermeable surface on the lot? Like how much you could cover entirely?
There is a definition of that, but it doesn't. Our zoning doesn't say anything about. Well, it does, and it relates to how much surface area you have. So it's directly relatable to what you allow for surface area. One of the things that Bove was saying was that there isn't a business in the world that's going to make their building so big that they can't get people in front of it to park. So in a way, he's saying trust the business to know what they need, and kind of makes sense. Nobody's going to hurt themselves, but we hurt ourselves by not allowing a larger percentage of the area to be building, or whatever they need for commercial space. So those are kind of the big ones. There's also some discussion about residential side and rear lot. We're very high for the area. The front yard has to have a 40 yard setback or 40 foot setback, and the 30 foot, and the side yards are 20 and 30 rear yards. So that's considerable. And if you look in the compact out here, there's probably hardly any that make that, but any new development would have to have that. And once again, we limit ourselves by that. So if somebody wanted to put in a PUD, for instance, they would have to get those setbacks on, if it was individual units, they would have to get those setbacks all the time, so they would have far fewer units, and therefore less taxes. So it's a consideration, and I suspect, for instance, I suspect the final cut on that will be, we'll probably cut down 10 feet off the front. We'll probably cut 5 feet off the side, and probably maybe half in the rear yard, which would go from 30 to 15 would be the minimum. I'm just trying to calculate, I don't know, Shane knows. That's probably the most controversial except for the parking.
Can I-
Yep, go ahead.
You might be in it. It's the storage containers or pods that I've seen popping up. And is the zoning that you're looking at anything like length of time and location? For example, it's one thing to have a metal pod storage building. If you're going to treat it as a garage, you're looking to put it, instead of on the front of the house, it has to be in the back, or even for that matter, the metal pod that it has, after so much time, it's no longer considered temporary or whatever. I just think, I've seen them start popping up in town, and I'm just saying, is it just an odd thing, or is it something that we're gonna see more of? And before we're looking at it, before it becomes an issue or whatever, I'm saying, I'm not really ready to put a stake in the ground and say I'm for or against. I'm just saying, probably should be some rules, and I don't know if there's any rules, and now's the opportunity.
You know what, I don't know that there is. I don't know that there,
Or a question
everything
for
like the,
Mr. Bove or something.
yeah, the storage containers, for instance, are treated just like a shed. So if it's over 120 square feet, it has to have a permit.
But I'm thinking more in terms of when the discussions I think I've mentioned here in the past about when people talk to me about Fairhaven, it looks sometimes like it's blighted. Well, some of the things you start throwing.
Well, I disagree with that.
Well, I know you do, but I can tell you that I worry about property value and people moving in, and if I see those all over
Yeah,
the
but
place,
every time you say that,
it's not where I'm
it's
gonna buy
like
and build a house
It's
or
like the
wanna
police
live.
chief saying that this place is, every time he needs more money, he talks about drugs. I mean, it's the same theory. We gotta stop talking like it is. There are places where there are problems that are solvable. But it's,
And I'm not saying we're not. I think though, if we, sitting at this board and the planning board,
Yeah.
aren't the ones who are setting the tone, I'm all for inspiring,
I-
but sometimes inspiration is a good boot in the butt. I do think
I get that. I get
that
that.
grass that's 4 feet high, junk that's sitting all over the place, is something that you don't sit back, and I don't agree, and I'll get off my horse, of someone saying, well, people's property, you can't tell them what to do. If we can't tell them what to do, I don't know who can,
well,
quite frankly.
I won't-
And people are not gonna wanna come buy houses and live in a town that's falling down around them.
well, I agree with you there, and I do agree with you there, but.
So and that's where my emotion comes.
I know, and I'm just the same
And-
with the other end of that argument.
And again, I'm just saying, we're looking at our zoning. I don't want to, I'm still not happy with the whole trailer thing on Grape Street, just so you understand.
Oh, yeah.
Not either.
Oh, I think it was a bad day for the town of Fairhaven and for us as leaders that thing happened. And there's some fights that are worth fighting and but anyway.
In the zoning, a trailer is considered a habitable dwelling and is.
I believe when we start talking about not fitting into the community, we lost on every level when that trailer went in instead of another house on there.
And the state, I will say that the state is very strict about using character of the neighborhood. Because.
We should be pushing back on the state.
Well, because what happens is, that's how you get exclusive neighborhoods. That's the wording that has been used throughout the years to keep minorities out of a neighborhood, to keep trailers out of the neighborhood, whatever, but that's how that's worked. So they're very strict about.
With mine, it has nothing to do with this, because we have nice looking trailers and
Yeah,
home.
I know,
I'm not an
They're sure.
anti-trailer person, but at the same time, I'm looking just from the dollars and cents of what you get for taxes for a trailer versus, and at the end of the day, same services and everything else. And if you had a home to begin with there, and the way I read the zoning thing, and the reason, I'm just trying to give feedback, because I'd rather, and when you come with a finished product, I don't want to sit here and take a lot of your time saying, I disagree with this, and this. I go back and say, my concerns are that there's got to be a way where I thought the original zoning regulation says there's a footprint. And when this goes, you need to go back to that footprint or get some kind of other approvals for changes. And I'm not so sure we're that good at that. That's all.
And the other thing too is in the trailer end of thing, we used to have a trailer factory here, and I think when this original document was put together, it probably wanted to incorporate
No question.
the fact that we had a factory down there. There was a
But
revenue
anyway,
generator.
But anyway, and I don't mean to find.
That's all right.
You're-
I get it. The next one so the setbacks will come, to summarize, the setbacks will come with lower setbacks, and that will be something that we'll need to highlight so everybody understands this is happening, so it's not a surprise. But if people are adamantly against the idea, please let us know so that we do that, so that we have that argument before we put it into a final.
If you were looking, my 2 cents on setbacks, as long as if you want to shorten the setback requires the neighbor agreeing to the setback, I have no problem.
Okay.
But if I know that when there was an addition built on a house next to mine, I signed off because they didn't meet the setbacks you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, that's ridiculous. They wanted to build, they needed
Yeah,
to
and-
expand, and I signed off. But it was a choice that I made, and I would,
Right.
if we're going to shorten the setbacks up by,
That I think where you'll see this affected mostly will be in new construction.
new construction.
And so it gives people the ability to put a bigger house up, and also gives somebody that is developing a project to make the lots a little bit smaller and more, so there's more houses on that. I think that's the thought process behind that, and so that's a generator for us. Now, there's one more that we is parking requirement. These are suggested, and I will say to you that there was not a huge amount of support for this on the commission, particularly in most towns now. They have gone to apartments. They've gone to apartments having required only one parking space per apartment. Poultney has done something interesting. They have gone to 1.5 parking spaces, which is kind of clever. And what it does is some of the older buildings that you're going to make apartments out of, if you have a 3-bedroom, or if you have a 3 apartment building that you can make out of the building you have, the biggest hurdle usually is parking, and 1.5 lowers that by a little bit. We immediately run into the problem that we have on Mechanic Street, which is so that was the first thing that was brought up as a problem. So that hasn't been resolved yet, but feedback from that will be well taken. There's also different parking, like for auditoriums, community centers. That particular thing says now one one parking space for every 3 seats. A lot of towns have gone to one parking place per 300 square feet. So there's some thought process on that, and there's some thinking that needs to be done on that, because that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. In restaurants, right now we are one parking space for each 3 seats. The suggestion was go to 4 seats, and we have it now as 3 employees. He would suggest we go to 5 employees for a restaurant. That's not a huge difference, but it's the biggie is the parking up there.
Question on, I think when you start talking parking spaces for apartments, I think of where the question, like the apartments we have downtown, and the motorcycle that's parked overnight, and the non-parking overnight, been there all summer, and sometimes there's a car, and there's no parking
And
overnight
he does all his repairs
that we need to address. But I'm saying that's probably a symptom of the fact that there's apartments in these what used to be businesses, and there's no parking at all unless you go to the
Yeah.
park and ride that we have around the corner. Are there different in the zoning that you're looking at? Are there apartment houses, like you go down Grave Street and you make an apartment house and you have a requirement for some parking spaces? Different from, I've got an upstairs apartment in the middle of town, where are the parking spaces for those?
And
I don't know how, I'm just
no.
telling you the
and
question
it's
I'd
been-
come in is, no matter what I put there, how would I enforce it? How
Yeah.
would I even know
it's been
what I
my
had
pet-
for the
It's
number?
been my pet peeve that those downtown apartments were allowed to go in without any parking.
That's what it looks like.
They went in without any apartment. And, but they also were built originally when nobody needed parking. Everybody walked or took a trolley or, or train or whatever, so they didn't have cars. So, not that that's an excuse, it's just that's the reality of the thing. So the ability to change the parking, the only good it does is it allows somebody that's developing an apartment complex to have to allow for less parking than our zoning does right now. Like I said, the jury's still out on that. Nobody was pretty thrilled about the idea, because you really have to think about it in 2 ways, and it goes back to a developer who is building a new complex isn't going to short themselves they'll put the parking they need, but they won't put any more than they have to. So if they can get away with one, they'll get away with one, and whether that's good for the town of Fairhaven or bad is a decision we have to make. So any kind of feedback that you have doesn't have to be tonight, but I don't think we have a meeting until November. And so think about it. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of, there was more support for maybe the 300 square feet as opposed to 3 seats, and more support for the one parking per 3 seats. The suggestion was 4, which is a table, so, but they're probably coming in two cars these days, not together, And so there's more support for that. There wasn't so much support for the apartments, and we'll have to nail that down. And it'll be a vote at the commission, and then here, if there's serious disagreement.
So, this 300 feet versus 3, it's something, that doesn't add up there at all. 300 square foot's a lot of area,
I know.
and you can only have one parking spot for that 300 square foot.
That's what, and I thought that too. I thought that was a little odd.
It's not,
Yeah, and the only reason for the question
Yeah,
is,
I agree.
I think it's great that use some of the upstairs stuff in downtown for apartments, but it makes me think to the effect if we're gonna require someone who's got an apartment over here to have so many parking spaces,
I've always said that.
then and if we've got a different approach we're taking with downtown and upstairs apartments, we should be thinking, do we need parking out behind those buildings for those apartments?
They
or
are required to use that,
whatever?
but there
And
isn't any for the corner block, the green block.
the green block,
There isn't any parking at all. And I don't think there's anything for above the old bank.
and that's probably why we have the things, the motorcycle, and there's usually a reason, and no one just wants to ignore
Right.
what the rules are. There's a reason there's no parking.
Same thing with the next to the bakery, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the only thing we probably do with that guy is move him to the free parking, which is defeats our purpose as well, but it's
Right, we
better
took,
than where it is.
right, we take, at the end of the day, if we're hoping that the park and ride and the free parking is helping our businesses,
Yeah,
we've
Yep.
made it tougher for people. I get you. I don't know what the answer is, but okay,
so
that's
anyways,
good.
think about that, those are
Mhm.
the basics.
Okay,
Can we, Joe, would you be able to reach out to maybe some similar towns in terms of size and maybe towns that have seen some recent positive growth?
You might get a better explanation from Poultney than I've given you, why they went to.
I could ask somebody who knows more about this than I do. But this is, so that's what they're doing now, Chad, is they're going through seeing what they want to add. So my input is superfluous at this point because they've already done that, or they should
Okay.
be doing that.
That makes sense, yes.
Mhm.
That's, yeah.
Planning commission, yes. Yeah.
The other thing that we have as a fallback, an applicant may request the minimum parking standards established in 701 be reduced during a site plan or conditional use review, but not both, so he gets one chance to ask that question. Design and standards for off-street parking. Parking spaces shall at the minimum meet design standards set forth in IT parking generational manual. That is changing, so there will be a different standard than this particular one that says 9 feet minimum, 19 feet length minimum is a typical. It's changing. We haven't gotten the change yet, so we will comply with the change. That's pretty much it. Those are the basics ones. The input I will pass on about storage pods and the trailer on Grape Street and agreement on setback language. I'm a little leery myself. I'm a little leery of that. Like it's better if you have something that everybody can point to. If you have a neighbor you're not that fond of, you're not going to get the agreement. So, but there's maybe a way to write that I haven't thought of yet. So, I certainly haven't thought. It'll be both. It won't be me. So, anyways, that's what's there. If there's, I'm still scratching through this, so I can't give you this one. But there's other copies if you want to go through the whole thing. It's quite wonderful reading.
Is the game plan, Bob, that we're gonna try to have, what's your schedule for wrapping up and having something?
I would like to think, I've told you this 100 times and it's always been another month down the road, but scheduling conflicts with Ed were the biggest thing, and then we ran into everybody was sick. We didn't have a meeting so there's been some problems. I would like to think that it was stated at the end of the year we should have the final draft ready to go. I don't see a problem with that. Ed's in Spain right now, so he'll be gone for 2 weeks, but after he's going to be at the next meeting with hopefully a grant in hand, and and the ability to have these final little things, not little things, big things, but,
Mhm.
at least a draft of what we agree on. So, and then it's a matter of just printing it without all the strike throughs, with the table of contents and with the maps on the back, and we should,
Yeah, I was just thinking,
yeah,
even if the timeframe, you shoot for the end of the year, but if we get it completed before, March, for example, because you might have different people and starting,
yeah, I know, I think the end of the year is reasonably doable.
Good.
And we'll go from there, but if there's anything that you're concerned about, please let us know before November, I believe it's 2nd. I think our next meeting is the 2nd. We had an early one to accommodate Ed. We should have a meeting tomorrow, but we had it last Wednesday instead, so I don't think we have one until the 2nd, so plenty of time for input. And sorry that took so long, but that's where we're at. Things happening around town.
So, just two quick updates. The Fairhaven Street Market, they said they'd be wrapping up about mid-October, so now's the time to get down there. Get your street market goodies if you're still interested. And on Saturday, October 29th at 2 p.m. at the dog park, Linda Barker is organizing a Howl-O-Ween party. You get it? Howl-O-Ween? Get that guy? So that's going on for Halloween this year.
We talked about ARPA spending, downtown designation. That's one of the reasons that they can have apartments and no parking. That helps them. So, town plan, same thing. Once we get this, the town plan will come in. There's a few additions we have to put in from the state, but we haven't done anything until we get done with the zoning regs. Adam Street you talked about, zoning we beat to death. Board roundtable. You're up.
Okay, well, we're just more or less working on some facts and figures on DPW relocations, trying to get some more information. And mowing machine, we really gotta consider that this year. Somehow, some way, gotta be done. That's very important. Aaron does have some pretty good information on one. If it's something we're interested in. I don't know.
Are you gonna put that in your budget, or?
We talk about that when we talk about DPW, right, you're way ahead
Yep,
of me.
I think we're gonna wait till next week on that, right?
Or if you folks are ready to talk, budgetary, it could be budget talk, but
Right.
for sure.
That would be good, because then we'd have would wanna see some springs and stuff.
So, are we seeing you next week?
Is it next week?
Next
Or
next meeting,
Next meeting, which is the 1st. Okay.
November
That
1st.
season, you didn't see a lot of me.
Yep.
And then, I don't know if I'd mentioned sidewalk, replacements, maybe getting some grants for sidewalks. Two streets that come to mind, Grape Street, First Street, and, a lot of them sidewalks on Washington Street aren't all that good. And so it's pretty much any street needs it. but-
Is it worthwhile doing an inventory to say, okay, just like we did paving, here they are,
All of them then.
here's the plan, and then,
I guess my question is, when you apply for a grant, is there a limit on what you can apply for at a time, street-wise, footage-wise? How's that work out?
It would have to be, they'd have to be considered a project, so they wouldn't limit you to length or width or street, but we couldn't say we're gonna do Washington and Academy because those would be separate projects. You have to specify which project you wanna do.
Okay. So would two streets be a project, so to speak, or would it be just one street?
If you were to say we wanted to make something like a safe to schools project that spanned like 2 streets, you could say that. But you couldn't say I'm gonna do a safe to school project and say you're gonna do Washington and Academy because they're distinctly separate. Like it's not a path to school.
But maybe you could do Grape in Washington.
Because they're contiguous, yeah, you could say you're gonna hit the sidewalk and come down, yes.
It's awful hard to really figure which street needs to be done first, to be honest with you guys.
Or,
And back to the fact that we have to plow them in the wintertime, some of these are just unmanageable. They're not wide enough. There's just no way to successfully clean the snow off them.
Nate and I were moving signs for Pike yesterday during their paving, and Washington Street, as you speak, going past in front of the Shaws. It measures out with the growth onto it at, I think it was 38 inches wide is what that is. It's about 8 inches lower than the grass. So even with our new machine at 50 inches wide, 10 inches less than the last one.
We're still gonna have the same issue of digging up the sides, but the reason you're digging up the sides is the sides aren't supposed to be there.
signs shouldn't be there, right?
Right.
Why
So
is that?
my thoughts are, next year, clip them down
Clip
where
'em
they
down.
belong,
Clip them down and then.
reseed them. Because otherwise, the guys go through all this work every spring, and they have to redo it again. It's just, we're not gaining, we're standing still and sometimes going backwards instead of moving forward with these projects.
If I could add, as he had spoke about somebody talking to the school about change schedule possible for leaving and all that stuff. I was joining my kids for a walk to school event in Homely. They hold 3 of them a year through a program that the school takes care of and does. The Rutland Regional Planning Commission transportation guy was there. So I was chit-chatting with him. He said, yeah, I'm here because with Homely having this defined walk to school program, they do it 3 times a year. There's a whole bunch of sidewalk grants and stuff out there for that are 100% funded. I said, let me guess. He said, Fairhaven does not have any walk to school programs in place, so it pulls us out of that category of just, so maybe behoove the board to,
Talk to the
Joe
school board,
and
or
board
someone
office.
to have a walk to school
how
program.
about we just throw a program together of walking the kids to school 3 times a year, and it throws us into a fed category of, here's some money to make nice sidewalks for the kids to walk to the school, so.
Might help us.
The north end of town, that's how we got to school. And there wasn't a bus line one decided.
There's
So,
still a lot of
it,
pedestrian traffic going
Yeah.
on, but it fails right on the high school.
you don't notice it until it's winter and they're not on the sidewalk.
Yeah, the sidewalks are real bad,
Yep.
really bad.
What else?
Yeah, so other than
You just proposed.
relocating a DPW, we need a lot more discussion on that. More to come on that, maybe next meeting.
Cool. We gotta get there.
Did you rob a bank?
I'd like to. For the town's good.
Better rob one of the banks out of town.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, go to Rutland, take their money.
Oh, lots of good ideas today. I just wanted to share my experience in meeting with some of the Rutland delegation last week, Rutland state delegation, and some of the aldermen out of Rutland and Rutland town. The Vermont Speaker of the House, Representative Krowinski, was in town, specifically Rutland City, and meeting with anyone who was interested from any municipality. And so I went and heard what was discussed and shared our concerns about Fairhaven specifically. And it is of note that we were the only non-Rutland folks outside of Rutland City, Rutland Town, Center Rutland at this meeting. So it was a lot of discussion around Rutland City, naturally, because that was the bulk of individuals present. And you know, when it came time to share what our needs were, I hit on a few points. You know, I certainly agreed with Rutland City's drive to invigorate businesses that are hurting by being unoccupied or occupied under different reasons or pretenses than what they used to be. For example, the old Holiday Inn, the Diamond Run Mall. And, you know, I concurred with them and I said, look, business in Rutland helps Fairhaven because we're a bedroom community for Rutland City. A lot of our folks here work in Rutland. And so, you know, it's everything that they suggested I endorse. But I also noted that, you know, we have kind of issues of our own that are unique to us and other small communities. Having paper-thin budgets where infrastructure takes years of planning and kind of financial strain and grants, and you know, we need more funding for infrastructure, and we need help from the state in navigating available funds. And so I explained this, that we've got a few folks working within our town that, you know, they're doing all the operational things from day to day. We don't have people specific to seeing what kind of funds can be appropriated to us, and I think we're missing out on a lot of opportunity. You know, and I suggested that the state not forget about the rural communities and not, you know, not necessarily focus on larger cities all the time. So I did go to bat for Fairhaven in getting assistance that way. A few interesting pieces, not only revitalizing businesses in Rutland, but there was also talk about how Rutland and Vermont would manage large business going into Granville and having appropriate amenities on our side of the line. I don't know how much of it is rumor or how much of it is factual, but there was a lot of discussion around an Amazon warehouse going into Granville. So that got me thinking from our perspective, you know, are we ready as a town to market what we have? Because there's going to be a surge of folks that are going to want to live close to work. And they're going to want amenities that are nearby. You know, and I think we would be a good bedroom community for an Amazon warehouse in Granville, just the same as any business in Rutland. So a lot of things discussed at that meeting, and it was fruitful. And you know, hopefully the state you know, considers us or any small town when it comes to you know, aiding and navigating opportunities. So.
I think that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
We just we don't know what's out there. And there's people that in larger communities that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's their job. All they do is look for.
In best of all worlds, if we could have a part-time economic development coordinator similar, what makes Pontley click on a lot of things? They have someone who's doing things that you're talking about. We it's been a challenge for us to come up with some innovative ways to fund on one of those positions. I don't know. Joe, if you have any? Yeah, I hear you.
Anything else?
That was all I had.
That was enough.
All right.
Thanks. I mean, thanks for going to that meeting. It was good that we had
It's good,
representation
it's good to
there.
have someone be the only town there, it's a good deal, kudos. Only had one item, and it kinda, goes along with, we were talking about the water, shut-offs, and we're down to 20 and everything. And it was brought to my attention, I said, some people are looking, and I just wanted more of an education thing for us, are looking at their water and sewer bills, and down the right-hand corner where it says due date, and it showed the 30th of September, and people were saying, well, we assume we had 30 days after that, and I go, wait a minute. I says, you understand, you get the water and sewer bill on the 1st, 30 days later, I says, even though it says due date, it might be more accurate to say final date, but when you look on the left-hand side of that bill where it says 1% is going to be added if you don't pay it by that date, that means you're late after then. So whole point I'm making, I'm saying, yeah, I'm wondering, because there seemed to be the large number that we had, and when things get tight and for when you're making decisions, do I go pay this bill or do I go get some groceries this week? You play the 30 days that's due here. I have up to 30 days now. Pay it on the 30th day. Maybe we've got some people that are confused that when we get our water and sewer. Correct me if I'm wrong. It usually comes on the first of the month, and on the 30th, I went and looked back like 2 years of bills, and it always said the 30th after was when.
It's mostly longer than 30 days though, by the time you get your bill. I think it's like almost 45 days.
It's usually before the 1st.
Yeah, well, the 30th, it's due on the 30th. We won't shut you off for another 2 weeks. Be state law, if that's what you mean. But yeah, you still get, it's a long time
But-
to get to pay that
I
bill.
think we are almost 6 weeks before that due date, pretty much.
So again, it was just wanted to share that maybe that's some of the numbers. Well, I'm not sure.
Very well could be. Maybe it's not big bold letters big
Well,
enough. I don't know.
when it says due date, if people get themselves programmed to 30 days after a due date, and it says no, that's the final date. That's the one that you have to start paying interest penalties and you're at risk.
So
So
maybe we just change the verbiage on the.
Final due date.
it's probably a state NIMRIC thing that's I don't know where do we
I think we might be overthinking this, guys.
maybe.
I don't know. I've never received a bill and thought it's due on the 30th.
It's
I'll pay it a month after that. That's just,
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but I think that's an overthought. Due date is the due date on every bill.
No, I'm
Tell the credit card
I don't
company
want,
that it's due on the 30th.
I'm not looking for anyone to get defensive. I'm just saying that it was brought to my attention and that was an interpretation, whether it's right, wrong, okay.
I
didn't mean to come across as defensive.
No, but that's,
I always figured that the due date was right after I got the pink slip for a lot of my career.
it's not.
The pink slip seemed to be,
Get your attention, right?
is that it?
Yep.
I didn't see, I don't know what these are. Oh, this isn't from the itty bitty committee saying that they want the fence painted. That was addressed to the select board. I am betting this is gonna be the same as addressed to me, and sorry I didn't see it before. Yeah, same letter, just addressed to me. So duly noted, as the former chairman used to say all the time.
We'll discuss
Yeah.
fence painting when we're doing our budget.
Yep.
Like we said 2 or 3 times already.
And again tonight.
And we'll save it into that.
Okay, I don't have anything else, so we got some financial stuff?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the payroll of $34,961.20.
Second?
I'll second
In the head nod, now I'm with you.
I was watching.
Head rattle.
All those in favor?
it.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
Make a motion to accept the warrant of $208,636.17.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the checkbook status is $3,067,783.05. We went from in the hole to over
Yeah.
$3 million, don't we?
So USDA did provide us with 5 reimbursements for the wastewater treatment grant. So that's where that money's coming from. They finally got us our cash back.
So we got 30 days to pay that. What can we spend that money on?
Quick. Good one, okay.
Okay, yep.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session, attorney-client communication under 1 VSA 313A1.
Second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?